There are moments in the life of a nation that pass quietly, almost unnoticed, that historians will later identify as the exact second everything changed. No cannon fire, no declaration, no dramatic rupture, just a statement, a number, a quiet answer to a question that most people didn't even know was being asked. Today, that moment arrived for North America. And if you missed it, if you were scrolling past it, if you dismissed it as just another political announcement in a never-ending stream of political announcements, you missed the most important strategic realignment this continent has seen since the creation of NATO. Because today, Canada announced that it is no longer willing to be a dependent. And in that single decision, the entire architecture of American power just shifted beneath our feet. Let me take you inside what actually happened, because the official version is not the real version. The press releases will tell you that Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiled something called the Defense Industrial Strategy. They will give you the numbers, the timelines, the procurement targets. They will make it sound like a routine policy update, the kind of thing governments do when they want to look busy. But what actually happened today is something far more consequential. What actually happened is that Canada looked at the United States, looked at the man currently occupying the White House, looked at the tariffs, the threats, the humiliation, the unpredictability, and made a decision that will echo for generations. Canada decided that it will never again be hostage to the decisions of a foreign leader, and it backed that decision with $500 billion. The numbers are almost too large to process, so let me slow them down for you. Over the next decade, Canada will invest $180 billion directly in defense procurement. That is not a wish list. That is not a fantasy. That is money that will be spent on ships, aircraft, radar systems, Arctic surveillance, cyber capabilities, and the full range of military hardware that a sovereign nation needs to defend itself. On top of that, another $290 billion will go into defense and security-related infrastructure, bases, ports, northern facilities, the physical backbone of a military that has been neglected for too long. Combined, we are talking about nearly $500 billion. And here is the detail that should terrify anyone who assumed that money would automatically flow south to the usual American defense contractors. Carney didn't just announce spending, he announced where that spending will go. And the answer is not where it has always gone. For decades, roughly 3/4 of Canada's defense capital spending has gone to the United States. That was not a conspiracy. That was efficiency. The American defense industry is the most advanced in the world. American technology is the best. American supply chains are the most integrated. Buying American made sense. But sense is a function of context. And the context just changed. When 3/4 of your military procurement comes from one country, that country owns you. They own the spare parts. They own the maintenance contracts. They own the software updates. They own the ability to say no when you need something most. And when that country is run by a man who treats allies like adversaries, who imposes tariffs on your steel for no reason, who threatens your economy on live television, who demands loyalty while offering nothing but chaos in return, that ownership becomes a crisis. Carney just ended the crisis. Not with anger, not with insults, with a plan. The target is stark in its simplicity. Within a decade, 70% of Canada's defense procurement will be done at home. Not in the United States. Not subject to the whims of whatever president happens to be in power. At home. That is not an adjustment. That is an inversion. That is a complete restructuring of the relationship. And when Carney was asked directly whether this means less money flowing to American contractors, he didn't dodge. He didn't deflect. He gave an answer that should be required reading for anyone who still believes that the old rules apply. He said, and I am paraphrasing only slightly, that the proportion spent at home will more than double. And then he added the killer line. You can draw conclusions from that in terms of relative market share. In other words, yes, American defense companies just lost a guaranteed customer, and they may never get them back. Now, if you are an American watching this, you might be tempted to shrug. Canada is a small market. American defense contractors do billions in business around the world. Losing Canadian contracts is not going to bankrupt Lockheed Martin. And you would be right, up to a point. But you would also be missing the entire point. This is not about the money. This is about the leverage. This is about the structure of power. And this is about what happens when other countries start watching and learning. Think about the psychology of this moment. For years, Donald Trump has operated on a simple theory of power. If you need me, you will do what I say. If your economy depends on my market, you will bend. If your security depends on my weapons, you will comply. That theory was never entirely sound, but it had enough truth in it to be dangerous. Canada did need the American market. Canada did need American weapons. And that need gave Washington leverage. But leverage is not permanent. Leverage is not a law of nature. Leverage is a function of alternatives. And Carney just spent the last year building alternatives at a pace that no one thought possible. The framework is called build, partner, buy. And the order is not accidental. First, build in Canada. Prioritize Canadian companies. Develop sovereign capabilities in the areas that matter most: aerospace, ammunition, digital systems, sensors, autonomous vehicles, Arctic defense, cybersecurity. These are not niche capabilities. These are the core competencies of modern warfare, and Canada is going to build them at home. Second, partner with allies. Not just the United States, Europe, the United Kingdom, the Indo-Pacific, any country that shares Canada's values and interests, any country that can offer technology, investment, and supply chain integration without demanding fealty. Carney signed an agreement with the European Union that treats Canada as a local supplier for defense purposes. That means Canadian companies can now compete for European contracts on equal footing. That means Canada is part of the conversation when Europe builds its own capacity. That means options. Third, only after exhausting the first two, buy from abroad. And even then, with conditions. Even then, with requirements for technology transfer, for domestic benefits, for ensuring that Canadian dollars create Canadian jobs. This is not isolationism. This is the opposite of isolationism. This is integration on Canadian terms. This is diversification as a strategy. This is the recognition that in a dangerous and divided world, putting all your eggs in one basket is not just foolish. It is dangerous. And here is the detail that should really concentrate the mind. Carney announced the creation of a new defense investment agency. This is not a bureaucratic reshuffle. This is a war machine. This is an organization designed to streamline procurement, cut red tape, and accelerate domestic production. For decades, Canada has been notoriously slow at buying military equipment. The process was designed for peacetime. It was designed for a world where speed didn't matter. That world is gone. The new agency is designed to move fast, to get contracts signed, to get money out the door, to get equipment into the hands of the armed forces, and to do it in a way that maximizes Canadian content. The jobs numbers are staggering on their own. 125,000 high-paying jobs over the next decade. Defense industry revenues projected to increase by more than 220%. Defense exports targeted to rise by 50%. Small and medium-sized businesses expected to see their defense-related revenues nearly double. This is not just a defense strategy. This is an industrial strategy. This is a job strategy. This is a sovereignty strategy. And it is all tied together with a single thread. Canada will never again be dependent on any single country for its security. The timing is not accidental. This announcement comes just weeks after Donald Trump signed his own executive order, the America First Arms Transfer Strategy. The goal of that order was to reinforce the American defense industrial base, to speed up weapons sales, to make it easier for allies to buy American. The implicit assumption was that everyone wants to buy American, that American weapons are so dominant that no one would ever choose anything else. That assumption just got tested, and it failed. When a reporter asked Carney whether Canadian industry is ready to compete with the American defense industrial complex, his answer was a masterclass in strategic communication. He didn't take the bait. He didn't claim that Canada could outproduce the United States. He said something far more interesting. He said complementary, not competitive, complementary. That word is doing a lot of work. It signals that Canada is not trying to pick a fight with American industry. It is not trying to duplicate everything the United States does, but it is absolutely determined to build its own capabilities in the areas that matter most. And in those areas, Canada will be a partner, not a supplicant. A partner of choice, not a dependent. The phrase partner of choice is worth sitting with for a moment. It implies that there are choices. It implies that Canada has options. It implies that the United States is not the only game in town. And that is the fundamental shift that has happened here. For 75 years, the United States was the only game in town. If you wanted security, you came to Washington. If you wanted weapons, you bought American. If you wanted protection, you joined the alliance system that America built and America led. That system is still standing, but the foundation is cracking, and countries are starting to notice. Think about what happens next. Carney goes to Europe. He meets with NATO allies. He talks about the new strategy. He talks about Canadian capabilities. He talks about joint production. He talks about shared investments. And then he goes to the Indo-Pacific. He meets with Australia, with Japan, with South Korea. He offers the same message. Canada is open for business. Canada is building capacity. Canada is a reliable partner. Not a partner that will show up only when it's convenient. Not a partner that will threaten tariffs when it doesn't get its way. A partner that keeps its word. Meanwhile, in Washington, the response is predictable. More anger. More threats. More tweets about freeloaders and traitors. More demands for loyalty without any offer of loyalty in return. And while that noise continues, while the chaos dominates the headlines, the real work of building the next global order proceeds without American participation. There is a question that every country in the world is asking itself right now. It is the question that has driven international relations since the beginning of time. Who can we count on? For decades, the answer was simple. The United States. You could count on the United States. The United States showed up. The United States kept its promises. The United States was predictable. That predictability was worth more than any weapon. It was the foundation on which the entire post-war order was built. That foundation is gone. And in its place is uncertainty. Will the United States defend its allies? Will it honor its commitments? Will it be there tomorrow the way it was yesterday? No one knows. And because no one knows, everyone is making other plans. Canada just made its plan. And the plan is simple. Build Canadian. Partner broadly. Depend on no one. It is the most significant strategic shift in Canadian history. And it happened quietly, on a Tuesday, in a press conference, while most of the world was looking somewhere else. The numbers are real. The money is real. The commitment is real. $180 billion in procurement, $290 billion in infrastructure, 125,000 jobs, 70% domestic content, doubling of defense spending, additional $80 billion over 5 years. These are not talking points. These are not campaign promises. These are binding commitments backed by legislation, by agencies, by timelines, by targets. This is happening. And the question you have to ask yourself is simple. Are you paying attention? Are you watching the world rearrange itself in real time? Or are you waiting for someone to tell you that everything is fine? Because everything is not fine. Everything is changing. And the pace of change is accelerating. There is a line in Carney's announcement that keeps running through my head. He said that Canada must be strong enough to be a partner of choice rather than a dependent. That is the definition of sovereignty. That is the definition of power. And that is what the United States is losing right now. Not through conquest, not through defeat, through neglect, through chaos, through the slow erosion of trust. When I look at what just happened, I don't see a routine policy announcement. I see a line drawn in the sand. I see a country deciding that it will no longer wait for America to come back to its senses. I see a future taking shape that does not include the United States at the center. And I wonder how long it will take for Americans to notice that the world they built is no longer the world they live in. I want to hear from you. Do you think Canada is right to reduce its dependence on the United States? Is this a necessary step towards sovereignty, or a dangerous break from a reliable partner? Let me know in the comments. I read them, and I want to know where you stand. And if you want to keep following this story, if you want to understand how these moves reshape the balance of power in North America and beyond, hit that subscribe button. The mainstream media is not going to tell you this story. They are too busy covering the drama of the moment to notice the transformation happening beneath the surface. We are not going to miss it. We are going to track every move, every number, every strategic shift. Because this matters. This is how the world changes. And you are watching it happen in real time. Stay tuned. The dependency is over, and nothing will ever be the same.